All we've got to do now is to start pumping.
Good morning, my football family. We are recording the Fully Inflated Football Podcast on a Sunday at 8 in the morning. Let's do it. Divisional round weekend. We got 2 playoff games to react to. Lots of reactions there, and 3 coach hirings that I've been getting tons of questions about, all the coaching stuff. So here we go, my reactions. Really excited for today's show. It's going to be a shorter one. I want to get this out with plenty of time for you guys to watch this before the Browns and Chiefs kickoff this afternoon. And also, I want to get this up because lots of stuff coming to you today that I think you're going to be excited about. I hope you enjoyed the podcast here this morning, but not long after you watch this podcast or listen to it if you're on Spotify, I'm going to be doing a live stream on my Twitch. For those that are not aware, I do stream on Twitch. It's mostly Madden stuff with some other stuff on the side, but all in all, it's just a good time. We hang out, we talk football, I answer your questions, I yell at EA Sports for their video game, and it's a good time. So I'm going to be going live on Twitch, estimating right now about 11:30 Eastern. We'll see exactly when that all shakes down. We're going to be continuing my Falcons rebuild series that I had up here on the main channel. So that's going to be a good time. It's twitch.tv/ThatFranchiseGuy. And then beyond that, what I think you guys are really going to get excited about is I am going to be doing something you guys have been asking me to do for a long time. I am going to do a live viewing reactions coverage, if you will, of the Tampa Bay New Orleans game. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I don't know exactly how it's going to go. I've never done this before. But I'm going to go live on YouTube for that game and basically call it like I see it. React. And yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. That'll be here on YouTube. So lots of stuff coming to you today. And then lastly, of course, guys, this show is brought to you by my Patreon. That's patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy, where you can not just support the show, but become a part of it by getting access to the exclusive mailbag for the show that we typically read at the end of these podcasts, but not going to be doing it today because of time restraints. But yeah, you can get access to the show through the mailbag, support the show, and quite possibly, most importantly, at this point in the season with the draft season here, is get plenty of exclusive NFL draft content. Guys, if you enjoy my draft content on YouTube, or have enjoyed it in the past, because we've only done 1 mock draft so far, but there is more to come, you better believe that. But if you enjoy my draft content, my Patreon already loaded with stuff. My draft board is up there. When all is said and done, we're going to have over 500 players graded, ranked, and evaluated. But right now, we've got about 20 receivers already done. The top 5 quarterbacks are done. We've got quarterback profiles up there. Already 4 film rooms up there. We have 2 on Zach Wilson, 2 on Trevor Lawrence. Plenty more to come there. Leading up to April, we will have team-specific 7-round mock drafts. So you can get access to all of that. $10 a month. You support the show. You can become a part of the show. Support my channel. If that all sounds good to you guys, head over to patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy. I am obviously biased here, but I don't believe that if you like my opinion as an analyst, you are going to find NFL draft coverage like that, and you can get 4 months of it for $40. I mean, I'm just being honest. Like I'm very proud of my draft content. There's lots of great stuff up on YouTube, but you're gonna double, maybe even triple the amount of content you're gonna get on Patreon. So that's my sell for the Patreon. Support the show, all that good stuff. Let's get started, shall we? Let's do the coaching hirings first. I'm going to go in order of kind of when they happen. So you got Urban Meyer, former Utah, Florida, Ohio State college coach, heading down to Jacksonville. Robert Sayla, defensive coordinator for the 49ers, heading over to the New York Jets, bringing Mike LaFleur with him, Matt LaFleur's brother. And then we've got Dan Campbell to Detroit, which I don't think is in ink yet, but all indications are that's full go, and that's not going to change. So I'm going to break that down as if we're going to get that officially if it hasn't already happened. So let's start with Urban Meyer to Jacksonville. And I'm having a hard time getting excited about this hire. Anytime you have a young team with young players and talent and draft capital, any football fan that just wants to see greatness and wants to have fun with the game looks at Jacksonville and says, I want to see that team thrive. And I'm no different. The Jags fans especially have been through a lot, quarterback-wise, coach-wise. It just has not been a good deal down there. So I want Jacksonville to succeed, like genuinely. And I'm having a hard time getting excited about the Urban Meyer hiring. You guys know that I have and I think it's for good reason, a heavy weight towards hiring a great offensive mind as your head coach. And that's not easy to find. But here's the deal with Jacksonville. I think they had the appeal to do that, and they were kind of all in on this Urban Meyer route. I'm assuming they interviewed Arthur Smith or Brian Dable, but they were like, we can get Urban Meyer with he's going to the Football Hall of Fame. And they kind of brushed aside guys like Dable and Arthur Smith. And Urban Meyer very well might be a better coach. I think he's certainly a safer hire than those other two guys. But here's the deal. The game has changed dramatically just in the last 5 years, let alone since the last time Urban Meyer coached in college. The game has changed full force in favor of offense. And that's why I'm so in favor of hiring offensive coaches. There's so many reasons why. Let me just list a few of them. Number one, the game has changed dramatically. Literally, the rules have changed. The salary cap has changed. The quarterback value of getting a rookie contract, a guy like Trevor Lawrence, has elevated to the point where it feels like every year the teams with guys on rookie contracts are the teams that are competing for Super Bowls, the teams with good quarterbacks on rookie contracts, and the Jags are going to be in that situation. There's new technology. Information spreads like wildfire. You'll see things like, it worked the other way this year, but Kansas City runs a trick play, and the next day you see BYU running it because there's so much Twitter and faster upload times and Microsoft tablets and better smart boards, like all this crazy technology. Information is spreading like crazy. I think it's a big reason you see high development tracks for guys like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. These guys are just learning better at a early level, and then once they start becoming professionals, the amount of information that is spread in football is crazy, and it's all offensive information. These defensive coordinators are on their heels because they're just getting hit with so much different stuff, whether it's RPOs, play action, quick hitting passing games. It's too much for these defensive coordinators right now, and man, it's really that simple. Like, this is an offensive league, straight up. Look at the 6 remaining coaches. We haven't seen the Browns game play out or the Bucs game play out, but the 6 coaches in the playoffs right now, still alive, competing for a Super Bowl here. You got LaFleur for the Packers, offensive. I think we can call him an offensive guru. He brings a lot to the table. He runs the Shanahan offense, and he does it very damn well. It was a well-coached game. That's one. You had, not Sean McVay. We're doing the guys that are still alive. Now, in the Bills situation, you do have a defensive head coach. So that's one. 1 out of 6, we'll get there, is a defensive head coach. But they're finally here because Brian Dable has coached this into arguably the best offense in the NFL, and he's gone. The Bills are not here because of what their defense is doing. We all know that. It's because of what Brian Dable is doing. And I love Sean McDermott. I'm not saying this is a Kyle Shanahan, Dan Quinn situation where they, I said like 4 years ago that it was a terrible mistake for the Falcons to let Kyle Shanahan go to stand by Dan Quinn, because Dan Quinn, great dude, maybe a decent head coach, but brought nothing to the table from a schematic point of view. And Kyle Shanahan walks out the building, and now they're sitting here trying to recreate that magic, hiring, in a way, a Kyle Shanahan disciple and Arthur Smith. But anyway, back to the Bills situation. Brian Daboll's gone, and they're going to have to recreate that magic on offense with a different offensive coordinator. So the Bills, yes, they have a defensive head coach, but they're here because of their offensive coordinator. Make no freaking mistake about it. But sure, 1 out of 2 so far, defensive head coach. Then the guys playing today, Stefanski, offensive head coach. Andy Reid, offensive head coach. Both fantastic offensive head coaches. The Saints, Sean Payton, historically great offensive mind. And Bruce Arians. You know, say what you want about him, but he's a unique X's and O's offensive guy that brings something to the table as an offense coordinator. So it's 5 out of 6 teams currently alive competing for Super Bowls are offensive-minded head coaches. And the one that isn't has the hottest offensive coordinator, head coach candidate in the league, in my opinion. So, make no doubt about it that having a schematic advantage as an offense coordinator, as your head coach, is the way to go. So, back to Urban Meyer, because I know what a lot of you guys is thinking is he is an offensive guy. The thing is, I don't look at Urban Meyer that way. He hasn't coached in the league for years. When he did, it was at the college level, running a scheme that time and time and time and time and time, I'm literally counting the amount of Ohio State quarterbacks that got to the NFL and had no idea what was going on. Because it was such a college-minded system that is so predicated on the talent that they have. Screen passes, quick game, run game, quarterback designed runs. It's not an NFL system that Urban Meyer runs. It's not going to work in the NFL. And frankly, I know Urban Meyer, I think he knows that. I don't think he's going to have a heavy role in the offense. Yeah, he'll oversee it. He'll help develop the players. That's good. That's a good trait that Urban Meyer will bring to the table. But he's bringing on, a Scott Linehan, for example, he's hiring. He is going to bring on an offensive coordinator to do the dirty work for him. Same thing on the defensive side. He is going to be your CEO type of coach. And to put it bluntly, as much as I love John Harbaugh, I love Mike Tomlin, Pete Carroll, these are great head coaches, but the game is catching up with these guys. You can't watch the Seahawks in their wild card round playoff go against Sean McVay and tell me that that's what you want your offense and your team to look like for a head coach that just the game has passed him by, to put it bluntly. I think the same goes to Mike Tomlin, and the same goes in a lot of ways to John Harbaugh. Not that they don't understand the game and not that they aren't great coaches, just that you can do a lot better than those guys. Now, you can do a hell of a lot worse. You could have Adam Gase. You could have Doug Peterson, Mike McCarthy. Don't get me wrong. You can strike out. You can totally strike out. But it's worth striking out when you are getting Trevor Lawrence. This isn't the Detroit Lions we're talking about, or the New York Jets, where they just want, and we'll get to these teams, but they want a floor. They have, and the Jags have too. They've suffered. I get it. You want a certain floor. You want to have a competent football team. But you're getting the golden boy, Trevor Lawrence. And you're going to put him with Urban Meyer? I don't know, man. I just don't get excited about it. I think he'll be a fine coach. I think they'll win games. They might win playoff games. But I just don't think he's ever going to... And maybe he's a bridge coach. Maybe he's a bridge coach and someone comes up in the system. Urban Meyer coaches for 2 years. They have a young coordinator. Urban Meyer retires and that young coordinator takes over and really thrives. It could happen. It could absolutely happen. So I understand some of the thinking behind it, but I don't get super excited about it. I thought that Brian Daboll, Arthur Smith specifically are the cream of the crop offensive coordinator candidates this year. Even an Eric Bieniemy. I'm not the craziest, I'm not the biggest Eric Bieniemy fan. I think there's a lot of good reason to be hesitant with him. Because Andy Reid is the guy there. It's hard to separate what Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill bring to the table and then look at Eric Bieniemy and say that he's really elevating those guys. But anyway, I just think that they could have swung for the fences a little more. And I think that the Chargers ultimately are going to end up with Brian Daboll, and the Jags are going to look back on this hire and wish they had Brian Daboll, who I think is one of the top offensive-minded young head coach candidates to come up in a while, in years, maybe since Kyle Shanahan was getting hired by the Niners. So there's the hire for the Jags. Like it's a base hit. It's a B signing. I don't think it'll be a disaster, but I don't think he's the best guy for Trevor Lawrence. I don't think he's the best guy for the upside of this team. All right. Then we have the New York Jets hiring Robert Sayla. And again, same sort of thinking in that I don't hate it. I think he's a great coach. I think he's definitely deserving of a head coach opportunity. And he could be one of the best defensive coaches in the NFL. But where does that leave you? Does that leave you as the Vikings and the Seahawks? Again, I do think in the Jets' case, they're a little bit further ahead than the Jaguars as far as talent. I think the defense particularly has a lot of talent, and Robert Sayla could immediately turn this into a really good defense. But again, it's the defensive-minded head coach hiring that I never will get ecstatic about hiring a defensive coach. It's just the way I think. I think I'm justified to think that way. There's people that view the game differently that are all about defense and think that you can win a Super Bowl with a Robert Sayla as your head coach. I disagree, but there's good things about this hiring. He is a package deal with one of these up-and-coming offensive-minded guys in Mike LaFleur, brother of Matt LaFleur. Definitely, I don't know if he's next in line as far as the Shanahan tree disciple hiring types of dudes. But I think Mike LaFleur is going places. I think he will be a head coach. And we see him inevitably almost. If this hiring works, Mike LaFleur's gone. That's basically what I'm getting at here with Robert Sayla is it might be really nice. It might really work for 2021. And maybe they're able to keep Mike LaFleur for 2022. Unlikely. If they have success, I think Mike LaFleur is gone next year. And he might come in and Jets fans get really excited about it. But as soon as Mike LaFleur leaves, what happens then? Do they have someone in place to develop them? What happens to that guy down the road? It's just you're constantly putting yourself at a disadvantage strategically with a defensive head coach. So that's the criticism of it. I do really like Robert Sayla. I think these players, like Quinnen Williams, going to ball out. These corners, Bryce Hall and LaSwan Austin, I hope that this helps them bring back a May, their free safety. You get C.J. Mosley back next year. Hopefully you can add some edge talent in there at some point. This defense is going to be damn good, and that's exciting. And the offense, whether they go with Sam Darnold or draft Zach Wilson or Justin Fields, which to me would be a mistake based on my evaluation on Justin Fields, but they could very well go that route. I'm not going to act like I know what they're going to do with the quarterback room. I do still feel like, even though you guys know I'm a Sam Darnold guy. I loved him coming out. I feel really bad that he just hasn't gotten the help that he frankly needed coming out. Like, as much as I liked him, I did see the problems. I did see the need for development, just like guys like Lamar and Josh Allen have gotten. And Darnold just hasn't gotten that help. I think that's fair to say. I root for him to succeed, and I think he can absolutely succeed in the Shanahan offense. But it does kind of have the vibe of they just need a change of scenery. Even if he's good, they got to pay him right away. What happens if Mike LaFleur leaves and then they don't have a good play caller for him? I don't know. I do feel like with that second overall pick, with how I feel about Zach Wilson and that he is a phenomenal quarterback prospect, a very underrated quarterback prospect at this point in time, I do think that they should draft Zach Wilson, get what they can for Darnold. I think there is a market for him. I don't know if they can get a first. That just depends on how many teams are interested, because if you got Pittsburgh, Indy, San Francisco, Carolina, if you have all these teams lining up to try and get Sam Darnold, you could maybe push that into getting the Colts' first-round pick or the Steelers' first-round pick. I don't think that happens, but if all these teams are interested, which it sounds like a lot of these teams are, I don't think it's out of the question, but best case, or maybe worst case, I should say, is you get Carolina's 40th pick in the draft or whatever. But yeah, that's where I'm at with the Jets. Like, again, base hit hire, like, I don't hate it. I don't think it's, I didn't really like the Zach Taylor hire, for example. There's some hires where I really don't like. And this isn't one of them. I don't hate the hire. I just think it's a high floor, low ceiling hire, and wonder if 3-4 years from now, they're sitting there wishing they went with a Dable or an Arthur Smith. All right. Then we have Dan Campbell to Detroit. And you can check me on this. There are certain locations where a high floor coach hiring makes sense. And I said this when I did my coaching carousel podcast a month ago, mid-December. And I did say about a month ago, so you can check me on this, I said that Detroit is one of those places where it actually makes sense to me to go potentially with more of one of these CEO types of guys. And I said this for a couple reasons. Number one is I didn't think that they had the appeal that teams like the Jets and the Jaguars had to the top candidates. That's important. I still think if Detroit could have gotten Dable or could have gotten Arthur Smith, they should have. But I thought Detroit was pretty low on the list of priorities for these teams. It's not an organization that has really done the best thing for these coaches, and I think these coaches know that. So that's big. They don't have the appeal, the sell to get these top candidates. And the other thing is they have an offensive coordinator there that isn't bad. I always struggle with his name. But let's just move past it. The offense coordinator that's in place that stepped up as the interim head coach, him and Stafford, I don't think you need to bring in necessarily a new offensive guy. What Detroit has is a culture problem and a defensive effort problem, in my opinion. And I think that, yes, Dan Campbell, this was back when I was talking about Robert Sayla to them, but they'd go with Dan Campbell, who is the tight ends coach for the Saints. So lots is going to play out as far as the staff goes and stuff. But I did say that going with a more CEO or rah-rah culture building type, call it Ron Rivera, if you will, was not a bad idea for them because they have Matthew Stafford in place and their culture is just so broken. So anyway, they go with Dan Campbell, who I say all that, and now we got to backtrack because Dan Campbell is technically an offensive guy, but he is not what I would categorize as, LaFleur, Dable, all these guys we've talked about. I don't think Dan Campbell is an X's and O's schematic advantage offensive mind, and I would definitely not be surprised if even he keeps. I wish I could recall the offense coordinator for the Lions. Forgive me, it's 8 a.m. on a Sunday. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they keep what's his name for Detroit, the offensive coordinator, and roll with kind of that continuity. But Dan Campbell has kind of proven this track record of getting the most effort-wise out of his players. And I think he has a ton of respect. Clearly, he got this head coaching offer kind of out of nowhere. And I'll pat myself on the back. I have a tweet from December 20th that I said, I'm sleeping on Dan Campbell as a head coach candidate. Could be the exact guy a team like Detroit needs. And here you go. Dan Campbell has emerged as the head coach for the Detroit Lions. And I do like it. I think you're going to see TJ Hawkinson with a total breakout season next year, emerging as a top 5 tight end. Dan Campbell, the tight ends in New Orleans are immensely underrated for their blocking. They have some of the best blocking tight ends in the league. Adam Troutman has come in as a rookie and has been one of the best blocking tight ends in the league. You have Josh Hill. They have 2 Hills. They have Taysom Hill and I think it's Josh Hill. And Josh Hill is a phenomenal blocker. Jared Cook's just never been a great blocker, and they don't lean on him too much to do that. But then you also have freaking Taysom Hill has been a big part of the Dan Campbell experience. And what he's done is this hybrid player. So, and he's learned from Sean Payton. I just think that he is going to be a very good head coach for Detroit. Now, it's Detroit. It could flop. It could very easily flop. I don't think this is a slam dunk hire. I don't think it's a can't miss hire. But I do think this is the right thinking for them if they couldn't get a Dable or an Arthur Smith. And now that I say this, totally forgot Arthur Smith went to the Falcons. So we have to add one on here. Falcons fans are like, what the hell? What about us? You got to talk about Arthur Smith. I'll talk about Arthur Smith. So yeah, I like the hire to Detroit. All three of these, I would say, are like B hirings. I don't think they're bad. I don't think they're amazing. Kind of high floor, low ceiling types of hirings. So yeah, I do like those three. And then, yes, Arthur Smith. I apologize, Falcons fans. I hope you didn't tune me off when I said we were only going to talk about three. But that's because very obviously I like the Arthur Smith hiring. This is the kind of offensive-minded, offensive coordinator, head coach hiring that I think teams should be making. And I give a lot of credit to the ownership in Atlanta making the appeal to Arthur Smith. They're going to recreate Matt Ryan in the Shanahan offense. He's going to pick up right where he left off, kind of making up for past mistakes of keeping Dan Quinn and letting Shanahan go. They're going to have a great combination of Ridley and Julio to kind of be that Corey, if that's a pretty good parallel, is Corey Davis to Calvin Ridley and Julio Jones to A.J. Brown, especially at this stage in his career. You've got offensive linemen in place that are perfect for this scheme, by the way. They've drafted some really good athletes on that offensive line. And the other beauty of this signing is I don't think they'll get Zach Wilson at 4 with the 4th overall pick. I do think Zach Wilson goes number 2, whether it's the Jets or someone else. I'm critical of Justin Fields as a prospect, but I obviously see the talent and room for growth, and I think he's like a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson, where like you do need to groom him a little bit. And to sit behind Matt Ryan in that scheme that is very quarterback friendly, the Shanahan play action offense, which Arthur Smith will run, it's so quarterback friendly. It sets up easy first reads. It creates these moving pockets that a good athlete like Fields, he's going to have so much time to throw. It's a dream fit for Justin Fields. And I'm not going to change my analysis on Fields. I think if Fields went to the Jets, although they're running the scheme too, so maybe I need to take that back. Let's say Fields goes to the Lions, where he gets to sit behind Stafford. What's a good example where maybe Fields has to start day one? Maybe Denver, maybe Chicago. Those teams probably aren't going to end up with Fields, but say he goes somewhere where he's got to come in day one and he has to run a very more pro-style type of offense. I don't think it'd be pretty. But you put him in a scheme like that with a good coach and an opportunity to sit and learn with playmakers, I think Fields has a fantastic chance to become a phenomenal quarterback. So that's like a dream scenario for Atlanta. I'd be excited if they could get Fields. If they could get Wilson, I'd be excited. Hell, I think Trey Lance could succeed in that situation as well. So this is why you go offensive-minded coaches, because you're going to help these young quarterbacks reach their potential. You got Matt Ryan in place. It's a great hiring. I'm sorry I glossed over it. It's because it wasn't really on my mind, because if you couldn't get the sense leading up to all this that I was going to like the hiring of Arthur Smith, whoever got him, well, there you go. I love the hiring. I give it an A. Call it an A+, whatever. There's your 4 hirings. It sounds like Brian Dable is going to end up for the Chargers. I'm going to hold off on that until it actually happens. But again, you won't need to hear much from me. I mean, I've spoken volumes about Brian Dable. I think the world of him. His protection, the way he schemes protections, is going to be just a sight for sore eyes for Chargers fans. That would be an A+ hire. And then you got the Eagles and Texans. I think they're going to kind of compete for Joe Brady. And then I don't know. I think someone's going to end up missing out, and I get the sense it's going to be the Texans. But the Eagles and Texans, those are ugly situations. We're not even going to get into Deshaun Watson on this podcast. But yeah, those are crazy situations with the Eagles and the Texans. And I think these top offensive coordinators that are head coach candidates are like, yeah, I don't really want anything to do with that. All right. So there's your coaching reactions. Now let's talk about the games here. 2 games to react to. We got the Packers beating the Rams 34-18, I think it was. And this was, as someone that has closely watched all of Aaron Rodgers' playoff starts, and there's some in there, where he played like a Joe Webb Vikings team in the first round of the playoffs. He's had some gimmies in there. He's gotten some good, favorable matchups. But for the most part, it's been, for Aaron Rodgers' career, for the most part, it's been him on the road in, hostile environments because his team just hasn't had the regular season success. So they're either like a 3 seed or they're a wild card team. But they don't get they haven't gotten a ton of these first round buys. They've gotten them in there for sure. And then it's him just trying to do crazy shit and bailing his team out. That's been his career, and he's managed to be the highest rated statistical quarterback of all time in the playoffs. He's the highest graded Pro Football Focus quarterback in the playoffs of all time. And he's just been this amazing, elite, all-time, to me, number 1 playoff quarterback ever, but the wins haven't been there because it's been him. The track record of his playoff losses, there's a screenshot that goes around on Twitter. You just get speechless looking at it. Like, I'm not being hyperbolic here. He either loses because his defense gives up 38 plus points. I'm not being dramatic here. I'm not exaggerating that number. You go down the list, go back and check. Literally, his defense giving up 45, 38, 37, 38, 42, 44, 38, like 5 or 6 times. And Aaron Rodgers is sitting there like, I can only do so much, guys. And the problem is, like, when their defense is getting reamed like that, he's not on the field as much. So it's either that, or he plays great, they go to overtime, and they lose the coin toss, and he doesn't get to see the field, where it's happened to him twice. So to see him playing at home, and it was great to see fans there, by the way. Football fans, it's a reminder of how much better it is. But he's at home. They're by far the better team. They're running the ball. They're playing defense. And it's just like, wow, what could have been? Because Rodgers in this game wasn't, this in my opinion, all things considered, was quite possibly his worst playoff game. I would have to check like the grades and really dive into it, but as someone that's closely watched all of his playoff performances, like I've got his jersey on my wall for a reason. This was arguably his worst playoff performance. All things considered. And he was going up against the number 1 defense in the NFL. Aaron Donald's a little banged up. But I don't think that's crazy. And he threw for 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, probably 115 quarterback rating, made some amazing plays. But I really don't think that's being bold. I really think that, maybe the Seattle game, he didn't play amazing in that game, where his team choked the 16-point lead with like 3 minutes left, which is not on Rodgers. And even in that game, he had an amazing 42nd-yard field goal drive to force overtime, only to not see the field because of the overtime rules. Other than that game, I can't think of one that I would point to and say Aaron Rodgers was worse than he was against the Rams. Yet they blew him out. And it's just sitting here like, wow, how things have changed. I had to issue a Brian Gutekunst apology like 3 weeks ago because this is a really good football team. And they've made some amazing moves. Some of their draft picks, I've been so critical of their drafts, and I still think there's aspects of like watching Equanimous St. Brown and Marquez Valdez-Scantling also suck in this game. And it's just like, I mean, they're a really great team. They might go to the Super Bowl. They might win the Super Bowl. But still, like, I feel like at times they're making it harder on themselves than they even had to, because there's so many other options at receiver that are better than those guys that they could have had. But anyway, lost my track there. But I've been so critical of their drafts. But watching this game, you got Jair Alexander, who just like, I have some tweets about this from yesterday. Like, he has been the best corner in the NFL this year. I was talking about on Twitter how I was putting up his numbers. It's insane. He's only allowed 50% completion percentage. He's given up the fewest yards of any of these top corners by far. He is like tied for third in the league in pass breakups. Now, he doesn't have Xavier Howard's interceptions. So whatever you want to weigh that as far as who had the best season. But Jair, I think, to me, had the closest thing to a shutdown corner season as far as playing a lot of man coverage and locking dudes down, taking receivers out. You know, for the modern game, that's as good as it's going to get, is what Jair Alexander did this year. And they traded down to get him. They end up getting Darnell Savage and Jair Alexander for one pick. When all is said and done, Savage has been one of the top safeties in the league, especially in the second half of the year. He's really come on as a young, insanely explosive free safety. He's a sleeper name that's coming for that crown with the best free safety in the NFL. He's not there yet. He's got to prove it more, but he's coming. Rashawn Gary. I mean, I loved Rashawn Gary, but I didn't think that it made sense there because they had Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith. But the vision for Rashawn Gary is paying off. I mean, he was awesome in this game. He had two huge plays. You know, the Rams were trying to muster momentum in this game in the second half. They had that big drive before halftime, and the offense was kind of working. But Rashawn Gary and Kenny Clark, who was not a Gutekunst draft pick, but they did extend him, they dominated this game. I think Kenny Clark probably was the player of the game, him or Aaron Jones, who was awesome in this game. But Rashawn Gary, back-to-back snaps, dominated Andrew Whitworth, who I also don't think is fully healthy. But yeah, Rashawn Gary, Elton Jenkins handling Aaron Donald. He's been an under-the-radar guard. So some of these draft picks, they've just worked out like to an insane level. And yes, I think some of the strategy that they've had is something you can be critical of, but I mean, you cannot argue with Gutekunst's first round, second round draft decisions. Like, he has nailed it with these players. And A.J. Dillon looks like he could be a future stud for this team if he could just stay healthy. So yeah, I think this Packers team, you're seeing it's just so different from what we're used to in the Mike McCarthy era of Rodgers just carrying this team. That's not this team anymore. You know, Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers. He's going to win the MVP this year, rightfully so. But it's like he didn't have to do a whole lot to win this game. He made some amazing plays. I'm not trying to discredit what he did. But he had the two turnover-worthy throws before half. He missed a big throw down the sideline in the second half that would have all intents and purposes put this game away. There was just little spots here and there. He was just missing by a little bit, which he hasn't been doing all year. But yeah, he was just a little off, I thought, in this game. I would think if anyone knows if Aaron Rodgers has an off day, I would have a good feel for that. I don't think I've missed a throw he's made in his career. And then, yeah, I mean, there was just drops all over the place. You have the drop by Alan Lazard, who made up for it later on a great play by him and a great throw by Rodgers. But that was another play that Lazard left on the table. I don't think any quarterback has more 50-yard touchdowns left on the table by just catastrophic drops by his receivers. But anyway, that's a lot of time on Green Bay. It was kind of a sight for sore eyes for people that have really closely followed Aaron Rodgers throughout his career. It's just like the defense made stops in the fourth quarter. They had a run game. He had time to throw. It was just weird. You have a great play caller, like scheming things up, making things easier on him. It's everything any Packers fan has been asking for years. Basically, kind of came to fruition in this game, other than good receiver, other than Devontae Adams. But yeah, this Packers team is really impressive, all across the board. And then for the Rams, I mean, they've been really beat up. There's only so much you can do with Jared Goff as your quarterback when these injuries start to pile up. I thought they were a really good football team. I think they're in a good place. I don't know if Brandon Staley is going to get a head coaching offer this year. I think there's only so many teams that go defensive-minded coaches, and I don't know if Brandon Staley is quite there yet. So I think next year you're going to come back with really this core intact. I think they have – no, they don't have a first-round pick this year. But they've established a nice core. Hopefully they can get Darius Williams back, really good corner who's broken out. But get the offensive line going again and get Goff healthy. Cam Akers looks great. You get Aaron Donald healthy. You get crowd noise to really make this potentially the best defense in the NFL. I don't. This just wasn't the Rams' year. If you're a team that has the best defense in the NFL and you don't have home field advantage, you're not the best version of yourself. I think crowd noise at full force is a huge deal for having elite Super Bowl winning defenses, because that pass rush really takes to another level. But yeah, the Rams are going to be just fine. I still don't know if they can win a Super Bowl, Jared Goff, but I think they'll be right back here in the 10-11 win, divisional round, maybe NFC Championship range, and you get into that range, anything can happen. So, Rams played their ass off. Cam Akers was great. The defense, I thought, played pretty well against the number one scoring offense in the NFL. But Aaron Donald beat up. It just wasn't their year. It all kind of fell apart late for the Rams. All right, so we're gonna talk about the Ravens-Bills game last year, and this is really the reason I recorded this podcast this morning, because let's just get the Bills situation out of the way. Like, I didn't think Josh Allen was amazing in this game. He did enough. He took care of the football, which is huge. He continues to impress in that regard. Made big throws when he needed to. And then the defense really stepped up. To McDermott's credit, to this team's credit, like the Bills, I just don't have a lot of takes on them. I just kind of I agree. The Bills are awesome. I'm rooting for them. Bills Mafia, good for you guys. I genuinely like and root for the Bills, but I don't watch that team and have major takeaways. They've done such a great job developing Josh Allen, putting Stephon Diggs in there, the offensive line, Brian Dable, everything's just kind of groovy. Everything's just good. Mojo. Almost said Juju. Mojo. Juju works too. But it's all good. It's all good in Buffalo right now. I think they are licking their chops, ready to take on the Chiefs, and I think they can do it. I think they can totally go head-to-head with the Chiefs. What a year for Buffalo. Wasn't the best day of offense, but they were fine. They did enough. Their defense played great, and I think they'll play much better next week against a much worse defense, whether it's Cleveland or Kansas City. So, sorry, Bills fans, I don't have any major takeaways here, but it's all good. It's all good for you guys. Now, we can focus on the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, because this is such a hot topic, and things always, for those that follow me on Twitter, things tend to get hot when we talk about Lamar, because, and you always got to stop and think before you say anything bad about Lamar Jackson, because he is the golden boy. Do not touch Lamar Jackson. Don't you dare say a bad word about the guy, because otherwise you just hate him. And I'll remind you guys, I don't hate Lamar Jackson. I gave the Ravens, in my draft grades, I gave him an A+ when they drafted him. In my what I would do mock drafts, I was taking him 7th overall. I like Lamar Jackson. But he gets put on this pedestal from a perception point of view. Whether you want to talk about your casual analysts on ESPN, people on Twitter, actual award voters who made him a unanimous MVP and put the kind of expectations that come with that on Lamar Jackson. And people call him a top 5 quarterback. And there was a report yesterday before the game came out that the Ravens plan to extend him this summer. And I don't think people realize what that truly means. I mean, that means, Deshaun Watson, who has not won an MVP, who I believe has as many playoff wins. He might have 2 playoff wins for Deshaun Watson. But that's what we're looking at here for Lamar Jackson, and is 4 years, $160 million, and most of it fully guaranteed. That's what we're talking about here with Lamar Jackson. So, pardon my French, but for all of you Lamar Jackson truthers, shit's getting real. You're paying the man to be your franchise, which means no more free agency. You want your number 1 receiver? You want to sign Allen Robinson? Good luck signing Allen Robinson to a $20 million contract while also keeping your defense. Like, this is what happens when you got to pay a quarterback. This is why someone like me, who views everything in the lens of, can we win a Super Bowl with the direction we're going? That's why I end up being critical of a guy that everyone thinks is the golden boy, perfect player. Not everyone. People are catching on to the fact that, okay, maybe he's not this great passer. Maybe there's a lot of problems to his game that need to be fixed one way or another here. But you got to keep in mind, everything I say is in a certain lens. If Lamar was doing what he's doing and no one was saying he's a top 10 quarterback and he wasn't an MVP and they were getting into playoffs and competing, and the conversation was maybe they can do some things with him on his rookie contract to really put some pieces around him and make a Super Bowl push here with this running approach, I wouldn't be so critical. But the idea is like, okay, we're going to pay him $40 million and everything's going to be fine. We're going to go win a Super Bowl next year. Everything's not groovy in Baltimore right now, especially if they start paying Lamar like that. So keep in mind, that's the lens we're looking at this. And the reality is, he's not a great passer. He's far from it. Now, he's not bad. He makes pretty smart decisions, but there's the occasional really bad throw in there. That's now, he will have the 2 worst interceptions of the playoffs. He will. The Tennessee interception was one of the worst interceptions you'll see in a playoff game. Literally just lobbed it up. Like, inaccurate, duck, not a good, just everything about the interception against Tennessee was bad. And then in this game, they're down 7. Defense is doing everything they can. 10-3, they're on the goal line, and Lamar just throws it right into double coverage, and it turns into a pick 6, and they lose the game. So those obviously are not great. There's other times, third downs, where he doesn't see the open man, where he bails from clean pockets too early. There's lots and lots about Lamar Jackson. I hope to do kind of a critical thinking, a film-based approach to Lamar Jackson this summer to kind of show, go look at his playoff games and kind of show, what are his real flaws as a passer. Because I don't so much say it's his accuracy anymore. I think there's some issues with outside the numbers that show up. Although the numbers don't really support that, I understand that. But when you watch him play, there's just a lot of throws outside the numbers where you're like, that just didn't look very good. That didn't look like a great passer. But he very clearly is not Deshaun Watson. He's not Russell Wilson. He's not Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes. He's not a quarterback that, at this point in time, that you pay $40 million and then you say, he's going to develop receivers. He's going to create, and he does create, but he's going to be the offense as a passer himself, and that's why we're paying him $40 million. At this point in time, that's not Lamar Jackson. And if you pay him that money, I have some serious questions about if they can put the team around him that they need to win a Super Bowl, which again is the lens we're looking at. So where am I going here? Because you guys know at this point my criticisms of him. I think he's somewhere in the 11 to 16 range of best quarterbacks in the NFL. And he still seems to be this objectively top 10 quarterback. Well, let's go through it. Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, in no particular order here, but okay, Mahomes, Rodgers, Russ, Watson, Allen. Clearly top 5 above Lamar. And then I think Brady, with the way he's looked, getting kind of up to speed with this offense, you're putting him above Lamar. I would still put Stafford and Matt Ryan above Lamar Jackson. I'm sorry, but I would. And then you've got, I'm just going through the divisions. AFC South, I'll take Lamar over Tannehill. AFC West, we're good there. NFC North, got through there. NFC East, Dak, so that's 7. NFC South, good. NFC West, we're good. Now, I'm taking Baker. These are the guys that you can kind of argue. So I think at the highest, you're putting Lamar 8th. I'm not. I would rather have Baker. I would rather have Herbert. I would rather have Joe Burrow. Sorry, Ravens fans, it's true. I would rather have Kyler Murray. So then you're putting Lamar 12th, and we've got Trevor Lawrence entering the NFL. We've got Zach Wilson entering the NFL. I think there's a very good chance that they're better than Lamar. So somewhere in the 8 to 16 range. He is a good quarterback, but I just don't know if paying $40 million this offseason is going to work. I think that what they should do is play some hardball. I'm sorry, Lamar, you haven't proved to be a $40 million player. We'll offer you, hey, you want to take a 4-year, $111 million contract? We'll give you the Ryan Tannehill deal. We'll give you the Ryan Tannehill deal. We'll give you $27 million over 4 years. Hell yeah, I'll take Lamar. I'm not some crazy Lamar hater that I would give him a good contract like that and hope that you work it out. And worst case scenario, it all falls apart. And 3-4 years from now, you're able to move on like Ryan Tannehill's contract. But to commit to him to $40 million a year, that's almost a quarter of your cap space for one player who's not elevating any of these guys. He hasn't done anything to develop Marquise Brown, Boykin, Duvernay. He's not developing these receivers. They have to put all this around Lamar for it to work. And you start paying Lamar that much money as opposed to the $2 million he's making right now, all of a sudden, it gets a little bit harder to do that. All these Ravens fans want to go and sign Allen Robinson or go and sign Juju, whoever it is. It's not that simple. It's not that simple. It really is not that simple as soon as you start paying Lamar Jackson. So play some hardball. Sure, you want a contract extension? We'll give you the Ryan Tannehill deal. You're pretty comparable to what Ryan Tannehill's done in his career. Pretty damn comparable, actually. It's a hell of a lot closer to Ryan Tannehill as a quarterback than he is to Deshaun Watson, to put it bluntly. So, yeah, if you can get him on that deal, albeit, and if they do that, if they get him $27, $28 million a year, fine by me, man. Absolutely fine by me. But if he doesn't take that, if he wants to bet on himself, then say, all right, come back. And then from Baltimore's perspective, I think that it is time to put a more traditional offense here just to see what happens, because this ain't it. This offense is fun. This was great for Lamar as a rookie, as a second-year player, when you had everything in front of you. Still had Marshall Yanda. You had Mark Ingram in his prime for whatever it was worth. You had 2 tight ends. And everything was like the perfect storm. But it's time to buy into helping Lamar become more of a passer. Because in this game, I'm not going to lie, man, a lot did not go his way. They had like fumbled snaps, bad penalties, missed field goals, drops that killed drives. Like, it was not all Lamar's fault. This is more of a reaction to the contract extension than it is to his performance, although there was a lot in this game that he could have done better. But yeah, surround him with a situation where you can actually evaluate if he's a $40 million player, because in the situation he's in right now, he's not showing that he is a $40 million player, but you're also not giving him that opportunity. So I do agree with a lot of people that say he needs better receivers. He needs an offensive line. Well, that's all good and fun, but it's a lot easier said than done when you got to start paying him $40 million. So I just encourage everybody, if you followed all of that, because I feel like I was talking in circles, I encourage everybody to look at this from a realistic lens with Lamar Jackson of, can they win a Super Bowl with Lamar Jackson, with what he's shown so far, getting paid $40 million? Because he got elite defensive performance today. You know, if Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, if their defense is only giving up 10 points, Lamar Jackson gave them another 7. If your defense, the quarterbacks are getting paid $40 million, I don't care who's on your team. If your defense gives up 10 points, the quarterbacks that are getting paid $40 million win that game. Period. You cannot argue with that. That is why you pay a quarterback $40 million, because they right wrongs. Marquise Brown is not a bust with Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson. He just isn't. And I'm not, Brown's not necessarily a bust, but Lamar does very little as a passer to complement Marquise Brown and Boykin, these perimeter receivers that they've invested in. You know who he throws to? He throws to his running backs out of the backfield, his tight end, and his slot receiver. And someone on Twitter put it greatly, like, even if they had the money, if you're Allen Robinson and you're sick of playing with receivers that can't hit you down outside the numbers, are you going to pick Lamar Jackson? Like, do you want to play here where you have to block all the time and not get great outside numbers? Like, there's real problems going on in Baltimore, and your ESPNs, your NFL networks of the world, they're making all these excuses for Lamar. Everything's rosy, everything's peachy. Yeah, you could pay him $40 million. You could win 10, 11 games next year. Your defense could be great, and the same shit's going to happen. Same thing's going to happen. You're going to get 200 passing yards from Lamar. You're going to go against a smart defensive team that prepares well and doesn't let him crush you with his feet. And you're going to be sitting there with your hands up, losing the game 21-17 again. So if you're fine with that, go for it, man. But I would not be fine with that. So that's the Lamar spiel, the Lamar rant, if you will. Don't think he's a bad player. I put him in the, somewhere in the 8 to 16 range. I think they should do some better things for him if they can, if they have the resources to do it, but that's not always reality. It's not always reality. Sometimes your Watsons of the world, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, sometimes elite quarterbacks are actually just elite quarterbacks and they just make everything better. That's not the case with Lamar. There's always these excuses. Now, I think a lot of them are legit. I think that the Ravens are almost forcing this play style on him, and it's time to see if he can be that guy. And we'll see if that's the direction the Ravens go. They're going to take a hard look in the mirror, as they always do. Harbaugh is very smart. I'm excited to see the direction they go. But that's where I'm at with Lamar. That's why come off is so critical is, no, I'm not paying him $40 million. I'm not giving up on him. I'm not like cutting him and drafting a quarterback or anything. Don't get me wrong. I'm not crazy. But see how he handles the expectations of, we're not going to run read option 20 times a game. We're going to have traditional dropbacks. We're going to ask you to throw outside the numbers. How can he handle it? I'm not saying he can't, but I will say that he has shown that he has not. So that's where I'm at on Lamar. Like it or love it. That's my opinion. Take it or leave it. You want to pay him $40 million and think everything's peachy, go for it. Go for it. I would say that at this point in time is not a formula to win a Super Bowl, which is what we're all trying to get done here, especially the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens aren't settling for an 11-win season and exiting in the second round when their defense held the Buffalo Bills, the best offense in the NFL, to 10 points. Yep. All right. So there's the show. I hope you guys enjoyed. Exactly an hour long. We are going to let this marinate, and I'm going to go live on Twitch at about 11:30, maybe noon Eastern time. And then I'll see you guys for the Saints-Bucks game this evening. So lots of good stuff ahead of us. Thank you for listening to the show. I hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. If you're listening to this on Spotify, leave a review. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like button. Check out my Patreon for all the draft content. And see you guys later. Cheers.